in terms of realising this overall goal of Palestinian statehood, and what kind of compromises are needed on both sides in order to get there?
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. I think in this case, the New York Declaration and this declaration of recognition actually goes further than we've ever have gone before, both in terms of the level of consensus around this plan that is laying a concrete roadmap in going forward, a concrete roadmap around the question of its call for the end to the war and the release of the hostages and humanitarian access, but also a concrete plan around the form of governance that need to come together in the day after in terms of the exclusion of Hamas from the future governance, in terms of disarmament, in terms of also a much enlarged role for the region and for the international community in realizing this plan, both in terms of providing security guarantees or oversight and support to the Palestinian Authority in terms of its needed reforms, or whether in terms of stabilization mechanism and force that can oversee the process of disarmament, or the process of putting forward both the reconstruction and the much needed relief. The other issue is that here, of course, beside the very high emotions on the Palestinian side, we have a strong support, of course, for this move. On the Israeli side, as we've seen, political leaders, including from the opposition, all came forward against the issue of, or the process of recognition. But the reality on the ground in terms of public opinion, today in Israel, more than 70% of the population want to see an end of the war and the release of the hostages. And if you ask around the question of a regional political and security framework and a non-militarized Palestinian state as part of a new regional normalization framework, you actually get more than 68% of support within Israel. So there is public opinion around the concept of regional framework. Now, what's interesting is that the choice today within Israel is to really emphasize the question of recognition as part of the isolation of Israel, and it's being positioned as a reward for Hamas. Notwithstanding that it's excluding Hamas from the governance, notwithstanding that it's excluding, of course, it's making very clear position on the fact that Hamas need to be disarmed and should not be part of the future of Gaza, and also overlooking all the other aspects that we're seeing as part of this declaration, which has actually brought support in Israel. And I've seen this in the work of our coalition, the Uniting for Shared Future coalition, with many pragmatic Israeli partners from the security or business background or political background who actually come and say, today there's a need for a new regional political and security framework. There's an imperative around normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia and moving the region forward, and an increasing recognition that that is not possible without the realization of the Palestinian right for self-determination, because the Saudi position has been very clear and the Arab position has been very clear. And the opportunity here lies in the fact that for so long we have not had such level of mobilization at the international level and within the Arab region to play a significant role in the reconstruction of Gaza, in the security guarantees, in the process of supporting the Palestinian Authority reform. So the leadership that President Macron and the Europeans are playing together with the Saudis and the broader mobilization of the region is a significant opportunity. The question is that will there be political will on the Israeli side to take this opportunity forward? And how will the Palestinians against this reality deal with the threat of annexation? Will there be enough pressure from the United States? Will the President Macron and the Europeans manage to convince the United States to deter Israel from annexation and forced displacements? If the answer to all of the above is yes, then I think we are potentially in a historic moment that can actually forge a new reality for the Middle East and can move Israel from this state of isolation, or as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, super Sparta potential, to real integration, and can move the Israeli and Palestinian people from a constant state of war, insecurity, and intergenerational trauma, frankly, to a reality of shared future prosperity, and also realizing the aspiration of both people today for separation, because both populations have a strong desire for separation. And a two-state solution is the only way that can realize this separation. And within a regional framework is what also gives us broad public support in Israel.
But Hiba, without, US support for such a move, how do world leaders actually now put their weight behind the push for Palestinian statehood?
I think it's very important today to see how there can be a mix of incentives and pressure. And here comes also the importance of how collectively the role of the Arab region, the role of Saudi Arabia, and the question, the threat that is surrounding also the Abrahamic Accords, not only moving forward with broader normalization. If Israel actually proceeds with some of the threats of its ministers on the annexation of the West Bank, we've heard very clear statements from the UAE. We've also seen reports of Saudi Arabia also talking about how this is a red line for both countries. So this is not only a threat of not moving forward in realizing the vision of President Trump of regional normalization and regional integration and economic prosperity, or what President Trump calls a new golden era, but this actually threatens to undo the one big achievement in the Middle East that under President Trump first term, which is the Abrahamic Accords, and seeing us actually moving backward on this front. The role of the EU is also very important in terms of the economic agreements and also the various statements by Ursula von der Leyen and Kaya